Hey there, and welcome to a video on proper workflow for uploading images that you have shot with a digital SLR. First thing you're going to do is you're going to insert your SD card into your computer. You're going to navigate on down to File Explorer down here, and you will see that if we look over here in the left, we will find our SD card, a little SD card icon. Select that, and you're going to select DCIM. That's Digital Camera Media. So within that, you're going to have 3 subfolders. Every different camera creates a new subfolder in the SD card. These photographs, I believe, were taken with a D60. Yeah, so that's these images right here. So this is the folder that I want to keep, this 102 NCD60. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this to the desktop, and I'm pretty much done with my SD card after that gets transferred over. So I'm going to minimize this window here right now. This is the folder with the photos I have taken. I am going to rename this folder, so I click to rename, and I'll rename this one, in this instance, sample. I'm going to double click to open this folder, and I'll see that I've got JPEGs and NEF files. Now you notice if they are not grouped together, there is a very easy way to group these images together, and that is simply to click type, and then that will sort the images. It'll put them together by the same file type. So I've got 3 JPEG files, 3 NEF files. So the JPEG files are they're not much poorer quality, but they're of lesser quality than the same NEF or RAW images. You'll notice they have the same numbers. I've got 0001 JPEG, 002, and 003 JPEG. I've also got the same NEF files. You can look at these as thumbnails by clicking down here, and you'll see, like, yeah, they're the same images, just they're in different formats. Right now, what I'd like you to do is you're going to create a new folder. You want to separate these into the RAW and the JPEGs. So first off, we create a RAW folder, and we're going to create another folder here called JPEG. And to select all the JPEGs, just simply select the first JPEG, hold down Shift, and you can select the last one, and we'll drag those into the JPEG folder. And then the NEF files, you can also click and drag over, and we'll drag those into the RAW folder. Now, if this was near the end of the day and I was done working with these files and I did not want to edit them, at this point in the game, this is where you would upload this folder to cloud storage, because if you come back to this computer, this folder will likely not be here. So at this point, I would upload these images to the cloud. Assuming that I have enough time, I can actually work on these, and my workflow should be, at this stage, I'm going to double click the JPEG folder, and I'm going to select the first image, and that'll show me a larger view of the image. At this point, what you're going to do is you're going to filter through all your images, and you're simply going to write down the file numbers of the files that you want to edit. Those are the files that you want to keep. So I'd write down on a sheet of paper 001. You know, I might want to edit this one, and I may want to edit this one. I can close that photo preview button. That is pretty much all I'm going to use the JPEG folder for. It's pretty much done. It's just for quick viewing of images. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this sample folder itself where I've got the raw images. And I'm going to double click this folder. And you'll notice it's got the same images in there. And I'm going to select here now the raw images that I want. Now, before I do that, what I like to do is I like to come down here to my Windows symbol, and I like to have a shortcut for Adobe Photoshop on my desktop. And you'll see why in a second here. So there's my shortcut to Adobe Photoshop. Now I come over and I select the images that I want. If I want to select all the images, I can do a few things. I can hit Control A, I can click and drag around them, or I can select the first one and hold down Shift and then select the last file that I want, and that'll select everything in between as well. Now if I don't want a file in between, so if I'm looking at it this way, And imagine I don't want this second file. I just have to simply hold down Control and I can select or deselect single files at a time. But let's assume that I want to edit all of these images. So I've selected them all. I'm going to drag them over the Photoshop icon. And the reason I work this way is I don't actually need to log into Photoshop if I simply have the icon on my desktop. For NEF or raw files, it doesn't actually make me log in, so it's much faster. So you'll see here's Photoshop in the background, but we're not even going to be using it. This is Adobe Camera Raw, which we're going to work with. So the first thing, of course, I always do in RAW is I come over here, I hold down Alt and I double click, and that will crop my photo and straighten it. Well, this photo is already straight, so I can just hit enter and it's fine. This one, it looks pretty close. There we go. Cropped it slightly, hit enter to execute that command. This one I'm not even going to bother with because it doesn't have any vertical lines, so it's somewhat abstract. Go through and edit all your photos. So for this one, I might bump up my exposure a bit and bring down my highlights. And maybe get rid of the saturation in this color. I mean, everything's going to be different. So down here we go, change the saturation of the oranges there. That's a little bit better. This one here looks a little bit green. I'm going to take down my greens, take down the saturation of the greens. I didn't change it much. I can also go. And this one looks pretty good. So I've now effectively, imagine I've edited all three of these images to my liking. I'm ready to now save these. So what I do is, just like we did with the RAW versus JPEG project, I select the first image and I hold down Shift and select, and that'll select the last image and everything in between. And of course, if I don't want to save one of these, I can hold down Control and deselect it. So make sure you select all of these. You're going to come on up here to the Convert and Save button. I click on here, and this will allow me to save these raw images as a JPEG or as a different file type. So I'm actually going to select a folder where I want to save them. And I was going to come over here to my desktop to sample. And I don't want to save it into one of these existing folders. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it edited. And that's the folder I'm going to select. So I selected that folder. And over here, what I like to do is I like to have this first pull down. You come down here and you enter the little blank thing. So there's a blank space at the bottom. I do that. Or you can have your document name first. It doesn't really matter. So I can have my document name first and then the blank space at the bottom. And this would be sample. I like to put the folder that these images are, the mother folder, where these are stored, as like either the first or the second file naming convention. So this allows me to know which file the edited file came from, and also that it's not just the simple JPEG that was shot and came out of the camera. Make sure that your file extension says JPEG, and that typically you want your quality at maximum of 10 to 12. You're going to click Save. You're going to see the progress bar down here. And now those images are saved. I'm done with Adobe Camera Raw. So I'm going to click Done. And what you're going to notice here is this is my RAW folder. So this is inside the sample folder. This is the RAW folder inside this sample folder. It's now got these XMP files. Now the XMP files are the slider settings for the RAW file. So any changes I made to this RAW file are recorded in this file. It's a very important file if you don't want to go back and have to re-edit your RAW image. So assuming I've finished all my editing, at the end of the day, what I can do now is I would upload this sample folder to my OneDrive. And you can see here, there's the edited folder with the edited photos here in it. And it has the same file name. So this is ready to be uploaded. Now in the future, if I want to edit any of the images that I see in OneDrive, what I do is I download the RAW file, and if I want it to look like this, I would also download the XMP file with it. And then when I drag the raw file into Photoshop, it'll automatically reference the XMP file from the same location and change all the sliders. So that should be your correct workflow for how to upload and edit images.